Hocam, thank you so much for taking time to join us today. We are excited to kick off the new season of METU video podcast series with you, addressing a very important topic, actually. February 4th marks the World Cancer Day, which is globally recognized for raising awareness about cancer and encouraging its prevention, early detection and treatment. Hocam, here at METU Biological Sciences Department, you have a lab on cancer research. So I want to start with asking the types of research you do at your lab.
Okay, thank you so much for inviting me to this very exciting podcast and for such an important event as well. In my laboratory, we are a basic science lab because there is no hospital associated with Middle East Technical University. And being a part of biological sciences, we look at cancer from a basic science perspective, which is very, very critical because we need to understand what happens in cancer in order to be able to fight against it. So what we are trying to do in my laboratory is to try and understand how cancer metabolism is different from metabolism in normal cells. So when we use the word metabolism, we are referring to the way in which nutrients are used by our cells. By nutrients, I mean the food that we are taking, the glucose that the carbohydrates that we are taking in, converted to glucose in our digestive system, or the proteins or the fats, how these are used by our normal cells and how these are changed in the way that they are used by our cancer cells. So cancer cells by nature are highly proliferative. They are highly motile because they need to move from one organ to the other. As we all know that cancer becomes lethal, it kills people when it metastasizes, which means it moves from one part of the body to the other. So this ability to move and the ability to proliferate are two aspects of cancer cells that we need to attack in order for us to therapeutically approach cancer research. For proliferation, obviously, energy is needed. For motility, energy is needed. Therefore, metabolism is a part of cancer or the makeup of the cancer cell that has become of enormous interest in the last 6-7 years, maybe 10 years or so. Interest in metabolism in cancer was first described many years ago, more than 100 years ago, by a German scientist called Otto Warburg, who showed that cancer cells utilize glucose much more than normal cells do. Of the normal cells, rapidly proliferating cells like our immune cells also like to use glucose, but cancer cells tend to use glucose a lot more than our normal cells. So what we are trying to understand is how does this shift happen? Why are cancer cells so plastic in that they can change from one form to the other? And whether this change can also be therapeutically addressed, whether we can use this as a target in order to develop drugs. And basically, our aim is to understand it better. So for this, although, as I said, we don't have a hospital, but we do have very close collaborations with Hacettepe University, with the hospital there, with pathologists, as well as surgeons in hospitals. And we do tend to work with patient samples as well in our laboratories, in addition to other basic science tools that we have.
Hocam, about raising awareness on cancer, what actions can we take on both individual and societal levels?
So there are certain cancers that are seen much more in society than others. So lung cancer, breast cancer, prostate cancer, liver cancer, colorectal cancer. These are the most common cancers worldwide and in Turkey as well. Amongst these cancers, awareness for all cancers is important. So we need to be aware of our bodies. We need to know, learn, and understand our own bodies in order to realize what is different, right? So awareness is critical at a young age. I, for example, try to talk about cervical cancer amongst women in my classes, because cervical cancer, which happens in the cervix of females, it's obviously not seen in males, is something that can also be prevented very easily, simply by an annual test that can be done on all students. This service is currently being provided by our medical. But when I ask the students, there are very few who have made use of it simply because they don't know. And by simply going for a pap smear, one can, in the Western world, more than 80-90% of cervical cancers have been prevented, because if you detect it early, the cure is very, very easy, rather than detecting late, which, if it is detected late in a young individual, it invariably leads to metastasis and death. So therefore, early screening is very critical for cervical cancer, for breast cancer beyond the age of 40. In fact, the age used to be higher, but there's a lot more cancers, breast cancer being seen in young women. Testicular cancer, although it's rare, it can be detected early in males. Its prognosis is very, very good. Lung cancer can be prevented very easily simply by giving up smoking. This is one factor that I also preach about a lot, talk about a lot in my classes, because students smoke too much in Turkey. This is a tragedy of our society here, in that young people smoke a lot. And I think we really should make it more difficult for students to smoke. And it's not just making it more difficult, but making them more aware of what happens when you smoke. You think that you'll be young forever, you won't. Mm-hmm. So a time will come when this will really come back and bite you. Yes, you're having fun now, but 20 years later, this will come back and affect you, and very badly affect you. So one of the most preventable cancers is lung cancer, and simply by giving up smoking or not starting it at all would be a very, very good place to be at. Diet is very critical. Movement is very critical. So diet is something that we are blessed with. Beautiful fruits and vegetables in this country, which are available throughout the year. There are seasonal vegetables that we can have freshly. And simply by increasing the amount of vegetables in our diet, decreasing the amount of red meat, decreasing the amount of animal proteins, we can certainly have the true Mediterranean diet. If we follow that, decrease the amount of carbohydrates in our diet, not taking it out, just decreasing it. This will all help tremendously in preventing cancer. So early detection is very important. Prevention is far, far more important, because once the cancer happens, the outlook can be good, but it can also be very bad.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Hocam, as you mentioned earlier, we don't have a medical school here at METU, but we have actually many professors, researchers who are engaged in biomedical research. Mm-hmm. So, maybe there are students now who are watching us who want to study at METU, but they are interested in medical research. So what kinds of opportunities are available for them?
So there are actually several benefits of being at a technical university, because research is no longer a single discipline. It has become multidisciplinary. And if you look at interdisciplinary research, biology features everywhere. And I always insist that biology education should be given to engineers as well. So right now, materials engineering and computer engineering, both departments get biology education as a must course. So biology is very, very important. In terms of biomedical research that we can carry out, we do have a biomedical engineering department at METU, where we have very close collaborations between biology as well as engineering, which includes electrical engineering, materials engineering, engineering sciences. So these are all chemistry as well. Chemistry and biology, we are working closely, very, very closely for several years now in the concept of cancer research. Plus, we do have a lot of collaborations with hospitals in Ankara, including Şehir Hastanesi, including Hacettepe University hospitals. And with these kind of collaborations, we are able to dig very deeply into biomedical research, keeping in mind that basic research is essential to understand a cancer. And unless you understand what's happening in cancer, it is not possible to target it therapeutically. So therefore, the basic science that we are doing here has its benefits over clinical research that happens. Because to get to clinical research, you have to do basic research as well. So here we have a combination of biology, molecular biology and genetics. We have collaborations with chemistry, which gives us a nice sort of pharmaceutical angle to our research. We have collaborations with engineering, with Informatics Institute. In fact, that's another very, very critical aspect of our research right now, because there's so much of in silico data available to the public out there on many, many different cancer types. So we have been mining these data for several years now, and the results are quite remarkable in that when we want to understand the cancer better, if we have these, and we do have access to these data, then we need to have the tools and the training to be able to evaluate that data. So our Informatics Institute actually trains us to evaluate that data. We have collaborations with the engineers who can develop machines that can help us. In fact, machine learning, not just machines, but machine learning, which has become a very buzzword today, but that has been done by the engineers for a very, very long time now, in order to extract more from the data that we already have in hand. So therefore, there is quite a lot of potential for biomedical research at METU at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Hocam, thank you so much for making time for us today and sharing your insights and telling us about your research on such an important day. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.